be here at the Quant Women digital panel. I think this is a first for QuantMinds, and how nice that we're all here for it. I do remember making a couple of remarks to the organisers last year that they needed more ladies, and thank goodness they're going to try and achieve that goal, and this is definitely going to be part of it. So what I'd like to do is I'll quickly introduce myself, then ask my distinguished panel to do the same, and then we have a few questions to go through, which I hope will bring out our own experiences of women in the financial industry, why there aren't really enough, because let's not beat about the bush, there aren't enough, and what we might be able to do about it. So my name is Jessica James. I started my career in finance in 1994 after a PhD in physics, and I've been in the areas of interest rate modelling and foreign exchange and various other diverse research in areas. And what I've learned over the years is that a good attitude and an interest in what you're doing will take you a very long way indeed. I'll pass on to our next panel now.
Sure. My name is Jeanine Kwong. I'm representing Manulife. I have been in the risk management, financial risk management area for insurance company for the last 10 years. I started my career as a quant in a Canadian broker-dealer. And after my Master of Finance degree, I've worked as an analyst in the risk reporting team and also as a quantitative analyst as a trading desk.
Svetlana.
Hi, my name is Svetlana Borovkova. I am Associate Professor of Quant Finance and Risk Management, and I'm also partner and head of quant modeling in a risk advisory firm which is called Probability. And I've been in finance, quant finance, for over 20 years.
It's terrifying how 20 years rolls off the tongue these days, isn't it? Laura.
I'm Laura Ballotta, and I'm a reader in financial mathematics at CAS Business School at City University of London. I started working in quantitative finance as a PhD student a long time ago, more than 20 years ago, and I'm still enjoying it.
Well, that's very good to hear. So we have a few questions which will frame our discussion. I have a feeling we may go off in different directions as well, but I'm sort of going to throw this open to our panel. Why do we think that senior women are underrepresented in the financial industry? And do we think it's better or worse than other industries? Jeanine?
I think, like I wrote in my blog post at hashtag Quant Women, where you can read more, I think that women tend to wait for the perfect solution, or we try to make sure that everything is 100% hammered out before we propose a solution. So I think that may have like lower our, give us less opportunity to propose, solutions that are timely and meaningful.
Yeah, linked to that, there is probably a confidence type of problem, and actually something that's been recognized also at academic levels. So for example, we are promoting some leadership program for women. Let's hope that we are going to see some, progress in the future. It takes time, though, to change an habit.
Well, I think it's all too easy to seek for the problem in ourselves. And I fully disagree with it. There are plenty of assertive women out there who do not need leadership courses, who are already at that level, and yet they are not being promoted. And if you think finance has bad look in academia, it's much, much worse there. So no, I disagree with this. It's not the matter of self-searching and finding a problem in yourself. No, it's a problem of senior management, which are basically old men looking for people which are like themselves.
I think that there's much in what everyone says. My own way of looking at it is, let's say for whatever reason there's a disadvantage to women. It could be external or it could be internal. What I have noticed is that in areas where there's high turnover, let us say there's a 5% disadvantage at every significant career point. If your career points come thick and fast every 2 years, then by the end of 5 or 6 of these significant points, there's no women left. So I take all of your points about the possible reasons for the disadvantages, but I think really the churn also affects it so strongly. So in finance, there's high churn. In some areas, my own thoughts are things like dentistry and civil service, churn is low. And I do note that there's a higher proportion of women. Perhaps that's also a contributing factor.
Academia is a place where turnover is very low, and it's a dismal place for a woman to be, to reach a senior position.
So that's not necessarily.
That speaks against it.
Yeah, fair enough. And in any case, I think the solution, even if it is churn related, is to make sure that bias, that 5% or whatever percent, is reduced as much as possible.
What I think is the areas where there is significant money or status is involved, or both. And in finance, it's a significant amount of money. In academia, it's a significant amount of status and prestige. This is where women are missing out, because there it's all occupied by people who are already there. And for example, doctors, senior doctor positions in the West are almost all occupied by men. In Russia, for example, where I come from, where salaries of doctors are similar to salaries of, let's say, bus drivers, there is a much, much higher proportion of senior women in medicine, because not that much money is involved, so the men in power go and look at greener pastures, leaving the field for women to explore.
That's very interesting. I'd love to see some of those data, actually. Anyway, I guess we should proceed to our next question. How have we seen the industry change? And I'm going to, let me take my little bit first here. Not very much. I think there's more awareness of what should be said and what should not be said. So certainly, from my experience, the trading floor is a politer place. But I'm disappointed in the number of senior women still across the industry. Anyone?
It takes a long time to break a habit, right? That's the problem. And we should find a way of speeding the process up.
In terms of change, I work in the Netherlands and have been in the past many years. And you certainly see a positive change there in commercial sector. So at least, for example, there are serious efforts to find and fill positions with women, senior positions. And these efforts are clearly imposed from above, which is not a bad thing. But you see that is at least there is consideration all the time of finding a woman for a senior position, whether it's executive or non-executive, and for non-executive probably even more. And that contrasts starkly with academia, where I also have been operating for the last 20 plus years, where situation got much worse as compared to, let's say, 20 years ago. There is no, there are some lip service, some initiatives which all just amount just to that, to the lip service. But I think on the senior executive level in a commercial sector, not just financial, but other also, I think there is a movement, yes, for sure, at least in the Netherlands and Scandinavian countries, there is.
You can see in, new job advert for, I'm talking of course about academic position because this is my experience. You do see very often written, we would like to have application coming from women.
Diversity candidate.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is always nice to see.
But that's of course application. And they always have to have an application while they 100% they know that that woman is not going to get hired, but they need to have an application. And of course a chair committee member, which is a token.
By all means.
Jeanine, what do you think?
I feel that there has been a shift in terms of tone and also the awareness within the organization. From my own personal experience, not, I'm representing my own fields here, I feel that there's more attention or opportunity or having women assigned to taking stretch assignments. And also with my own experience is that people are putting their hands up more and knowing that the stretch assignments are typically a way of getting those exposure and therefore a fighting chance to advance to the next level. I know that there are male colleagues or male managers that are very supportive of making sure that it is an equal opportunity when there are high profile assignments and projects. So I think people are more aware, and with that, some of the male colleagues are more aware than others, but I definitely think that we should encourage the male colleagues to do more, those ones who are already wanting to change.
Going off on a slight tangent, I have often thought that once you have fairness for our male colleagues in things like childcare, once they have the ability to take part of the childcare leave, let's not call it maternity leave, then suddenly you get the world opens up a little bit, because then it's not the women being forced to be the childcare
right,
person.
and is also a choice, a equal partner choice, instead of always the women has to choose career versus parenting. It became an equal opportunity discussion among spouses.
Yes, and which I think makes a big difference. Now I'm going to just skip over to one question, because I think it follows on very, very nicely about how we can change this. Should we have kind of minimum quantitative targets for women in different areas in the industry? And I've had controversial discussions with some colleagues who say, oh no, it should be purely on merit. But then you think, well, come on, we've had 20 years and yet this hasn't really worked. So is it time for more quantitative targets?
I'm a firm believer in that. I see that quota work in Scandinavian countries, as I said, and in the Netherlands. And I think it's the only way to break the system. And you can say all sorts of negative things about it, bottom line being it's the only thing that works. And hence, I'm two hands for it. We will not be anywhere without it, in my view.
I do agree. Somewhere you need to start, and if has to be kind of forcing a quota, then so be it. Maybe then, slowly but steady, things can start changing.
Yes.
My view is a little bit different. I like to look at data, so I like to follow the ticker SHE, the ETF that is offered by State Street Global Advisor. I know that their methodology of choosing those companies are whether there are more than 3 women at the board. And we have seen that, for example, if I looked at, I just looked it up yesterday, in Q1 2018, they lost 0.85%, but relative to S&P, which dropped 2%, that was an overperformance. So I want to follow that using that quantitative index and see what is the thing that is actually driving those performance. I think implementing the target is one thing, but actually seeing the results is a matter of measurement. So
it's nice to be able to make these measurements, indeed. I mean, I must say, I used to think, oh, everything should be purely a meritocracy, and I was always, oh, I can do it. And then I think I've kind of changed now. It's like, okay, we tried so hard, and yet, here we still are. So yeah, I've kind of evolved with my viewpoint, but I think again, nicely following on from your data remarks, like why should we have diverse teams? I think we've all seen the great results they can deliver. And my personal experience is that they work so much better when you have a diversity of viewpoints.
It's the richness of the different experience, the different backgrounds. It helps to broaden up the horizon, break stereotype, if any, but it has to be there.
Yeah, and I think customer needs these days is constantly evolving, you know, and the world has become more global, you know. So I feel that we need to have diverse team that covers cultural diversity, knowledge diversity, and diversity of thoughts to make sure that, you know, the product that we deliver to the customer is you know, applicable to most people, right? So.
Also the time scale. I mean, everything moves very, very fast. So,
I actually don't think we should only think in terms of what kind of things it delivers and how it improves companies and customer proposition. No, we should think in terms of how it improves the life of those women that do proceed to become senior managers, how it affects their families, their children, how their daughters will be raised with a completely different example, and how, and simply, I don't care whether it gives better results for a company. I mean, let shareholders worry about it. What I care about is justice and fairness. And it is just that everyone gets an opportunity, no matter of the race, age, by the way, and gender. So this is the parameter that we should be measuring and know how well company performs.
And Svetlana, you make a excellent point. I mean, we could take this to an extreme and say, if you remove worker protections and rights, then you'll get a better performance, which is obviously
completely
not at all okay.
No.
So yeah, we should just do the right thing. And
exactly.
So
and even if we have to sacrifice a return, which refers to my talk later on today, we still should do it.
So how are we going to get there? How can we hire more quant women? I mean, my own little take on this is that I was peripherally involved with a study done by the UK Institute of Physics, and forgive me if I don't get all the details quite right. They showed various folk a kind of average CV, good to average, and they showed two versions. One was Charles and one was Charlotte. That was the only difference. And they asked the potential employers, would you employ this person? And if you employ them, what would you pay them? And these were folk who were participating in various programs to try and increase women's participation. So these were the good guys. And universally, in a statistically significant way, Charles was more likely to get a job offer and would have been paid more. And these were the good guys. So my own thought is, the blinded CVs, or the kind of the trying to get as far as you can by making gender not an issue is one thing I think that does help. But also, of course, there's positive action. So what do you think?
Well, I lead Quantitative Finance and Risk Management honors program in my university, and so I'm also responsible for admission. So for me, for example, blind CVs wouldn't work, because for me, women go first. So all else given equal, I accept girls into my program first, because I believe in this enforcing gender balance, which still isn't working in our particular case, because women simply don't apply in such numbers that. But I think for positive action, gender neutral CVs could actually be maybe harmful. So for example, in organizations where there is a quota and awareness, then maybe it's a good idea to have a gender, like in my program. But on the other hand, the majority of decision makers are clearly still extremely biased. So, but I think the way to increase inflow of women is to increase inflow of students into those exact areas. And I think that's where the main challenge, at least for Western Europe, is.
I agree with you in terms of the talent pipeline. Definitely having, a gender balanced, diverse pipeline would be a good idea. Another way that I can think of is, during the recruitment process or even during the interview process. I feel like there are quants that typically will, start quantitative interviews using these very hard mathematical problems that they have to solve. And, some women are more intimidated by these kind of technical, very technical focus problem solving, questions. Mm-hmm. And it's almost as if they have to answer in a specific way that sometimes doesn't, follow exactly the same pattern as how the interviewer thinks, and therefore not being able to advance in the next level. So I feel that the interviewing process, if we reduce the amount of these kind of technical problem solving, but more on the asking about, problem solving in real life situation, how did you handle, ensure that the project complete on time, working with different stakeholders, understanding the dynamics. I think that is more applicable, and you also hire more versatile type of quants.
Yeah, but it depends a little on the job, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you need
You
somebody,
need a quant.
yeah,
You
you
need
need
a
a quant.
quant.
You need a quant.
Following up, you said, there is a factor of intimidation at a certain point that comes maybe because we lack confidence or whatever other reason. As an educator, sometimes I try to find a root at the origin. And I see it in education, starting from elementary, from primary school, And sometimes a more open-minded approach should be promoted rather than stick to what is on the book and memorize that, try to use your head, think about it, and promote creativity. But sometimes on the other hand, on the other side, there's someone who cannot understand the creativity, so they want to see the solution done in a certain way because that's the only way they can perceive it. And so you should start much earlier. And then the chain comes through. It, as I said already many times, it takes time, though, but if you never start.
So, talking about time, I used to do physics. Well, actually, my last project in my PhD was a little bit adventurous, and I've invented a time machine. And it's a bit dodgy, and it only runs on Windows. But what I'm going to do is give each of you the opportunity to go back in time and give yourself at the start of your career 2 pieces of advice. Now, because of causality, the universe will explode if you try and tell your young self how to play the markets. So nix on that one. But what 2 pieces of career advice would you give your young self?
As a first, I would say to myself to be a little bit more confident indeed. In the past, especially at the beginning, I wasn't feeling too confident with my mathematical abilities because I'm an economist by training, mathematical economist, but I am not a mathematician. So I was seeing very mathematical papers and get scared, intimidated. And then a few months or a few years down the line, I was just looking at it and said, why was I so scared? So that would be probably the first advice. As a second, that becomes a bit more difficult. I haven't thought about that yet.
Okay, one is fine.
I think I wouldn't even give that advice to myself, 20 years ago, but even less. And that is, I feel like I've excluded or shunned from commercial opportunities for the sake of academic career, which I think was a mistake. So you always did consulting on the side, but now I run my own firm and my own team. And except for being a quant, I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a team of bright quants working for me. And I actively engage with clients. I actively develop business opportunities. and I'm amazed at how fun and how rewarding both emotionally and financially it is. So I should have done this much earlier.
That's pretty good advice. Yeah. Girls, don't be scared. Have confidence. Go out and be commercial.
Absolutely. I think about myself, I would want to speak up more, like basically really asking questions right after executing orders. You know, I would definitely want to be able to have that learning opportunity, speaking to the people who are willing to share knowledge, talk to them a lot more. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think I'd add for myself, which I think I did anyway, but always be a good person. Just never do a thing that you think would be a bad thing to do. Doesn't matter who's telling you. Always be a good person. And I think that's also in any industry, it's a good thing to remember.
Yeah. Especially in the industry where you are taking care of other people's money.
Absolutely. They lent it to you and they want it back.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think this has been brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Here's to the future of women in the financial community.